gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Alvin Long.
Brother. Geez, if I worked at Molson Coors, I'd never get any frickin' work done. Good for you, man. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. And it is indeed, I mean this, I am so thrilled to be with you today. I'll tell you about my journey this week when I get around to it. But I first of all want to say thanks to the organizing folks, to Wanda, to David, and everybody that made this happen, because it's not easy, if you don't believe this, to organize one of these big events. So I'm not trying to get any browning points here, but I think we need to right now start out with just saying thanks to all the people that put this on for you today, because this is for all of you. So let's start with that. I often wonder when I get up in front of people like you today, if people in the audience go, so how do you do this? Do you write a speech? What do you do? Is it written someplace? Do you create it? God, I've been doing this for how long? Since 1981. So I've done this a couple of times. And over all of those years, I found that there's so many different variables as to what I talk about. And this is kind of a new one that started during COVID, and I don't need to go into that explanation. That was fun, wasn't it? And I started kind of thinking and contemplating this really bizarre thing that is such common thoughts in our world, really, but more than anything in my corporate culture of speaking to groups. And that is this idea. Now, I'm just going to throw this one at you, and then we'll get into the talk in a minute, okay? But you've all heard the expression, first impressions are everything, right? Very common thing here. You don't get one chance to make a first impression. In my world of speaking, there's even this thing that goes around that says you only have 30 seconds to get your audience on your side. So we've already passed a minute, and I don't know how I'm doing, but the reality is, first impressions fascinate me for reasons that you will now begin to understand as I explain. So you look at me now, and I fill what we would call, of course, a demographic. There's all kinds of demographics. I am the motivational speaker demographic. And if you Google this, trust me, don't do it now, because, eyes forward. But if you Google this and you find out this question, motivational speakers, you know what you'll come up with? You'll come up with white guys, mostly, and guys that have no hair, and guys that have soul patches. Honestly, I researched this. It's creepy. How many people look like me? And the reality is, I'm okay with that. But I also want to make sure whenever I get ready to do an event, I'm not wearing my, lousy clothes. You too. There's a lot of you right today are wearing very nice clothes. And then some of you, you went, whatever, don't care. But the reality is, I do worry about how I look. I want to represent my client, which is you folks today. I want to represent my own company, which is mine. And I want to represent the profession of speaking. That's what I want to do. So, this is what I wear. Thank God we stopped wearing ties a long time ago, because you can only imagine how much fun that would be. So the reality is, I look pretty good, and I'm proud of what I wear, and I try to become the professional. That is theoretically the first impression. But most of the time, the world doesn't see me all dressed up. Most of the time, the world sees this. And not even dressed up like this. I wear very casual clothing. It's a function of having no arms. But now we're into the second demographic, which, of course, if you want to plug in this one, the person with a physical disability. Okay, I'll buy into that for just a second. But you can well imagine this is what people notice. You may not understand why I would say this, but I've never heard anybody see me for the first time and go, oh, you've got no arms, man. That's awesome. No, they don't do that. In fact, there's a look on their face. I can read minds because I've been doing this for so long, but not even just as a professional, as a human being. People don't celebrate disability. I understand that. But here's the first thing that I want to show off with. Now, normally speakers say, put away your phones, turn off your phones, don't do any kind of camera work, but I'm going to encourage the opposite today. I'm going to do something for you that you're going to want to remember. Now, you don't all have to record it, but if you'd like to, you have my permission. I know it's kind of interrupting your food, and we all are kind of into their meal, and that's good. But you're going to want to record this, not because you're going to play it in 30 seconds, but because I guarantee you, I promise you, this is going to happen. You're going to get home from this event, and somebody's going to go, honey, how was your conference? And you're going to go, you're not going to believe what I saw. You're going to want to play this for that person, but you're also probably going to want to play it for somebody else. Maybe a child, maybe your own kids, maybe somebody you know that is facing their own challenge, because this is also about an impression. You ready? Here we go. right, you can clap for that if you'd like. Thank you very much. So, according to my watch, which, by the way, you guys are messing with me, and I know this is a cliche joke in Newfoundland, Labrador, but I've got one of these old school watches, okay? It's got a little knob on the side that I can use to push the button to make it change time, and it's very cooperative when it's only changing an hour at a time. So it says 12 o'clock. That's not what time it is. I get that. But according to my watch, we've been up here for now 4 minutes. You've had 3 distinct impressions of your guest speaker today, and this is what fascinates me. First impressions matter, but the most important impression is the one you leave behind. Isn't it? Your reputation, your not only company reputation, your personal reputation, your professional reputation. That is what pays our bills, isn't it? And we focus on that in so many different ways. And I'm not going to suggest that how we appear physically is not important. But why I think it's fascinating to talk about lasting impressions is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm a storyteller. I don't even know or understand what you're going to get out of this today because it's very, very personal. And by the way, I don't do audience participation. Just so you're set to go, because some people start to get nervous. You're not going to make us change tables and get to meet somebody we don't know, are you? No, I won't do that. We're not going to have microphones in the audience to ask questions, and we're definitely not going to do the trust exercise. Do you know the trust exercise? It's where a guest comes from the audience, a volunteer stands on stage, they face backwards to the speaker, and when the speaker says go, they fall back and the speaker catches them. We're not going to do that. Just so you're resting comfortably, we're good. But there's a bit of an audience participation in terms of just your mindset. And here's the first one, and this is a bit of a rhetorical question, but I want you to think about this. Do you remember your high school guidance counselor? Do you have one of those? Career counselors, remember that? Wherever you were? You remember that little 15-minute block of time you had way back when to plan the rest of your life? Remember that? Yeah. Here's the question, show of hands. How many of you are doing what your high school guidance counselor recommended you do for a career today? Anyone? Show of hands. Not one. Now, is that an indictment of counselors? No, it's not. In fact, I started this story. I thought it was clever. I got about halfway into it, and you know, once you start a story, you can't stop because you start to realize, and that's why I'm a creative person in my head. I don't write these things down ahead of time because you can't test them until you're in front of an audience. I was speaking to 1,500 guidance counselors at the Canadian Association of Guidance Counselors Convention in Toronto a long time ago. Started the story and realized, uh-oh, now what am I going to do? But I finished. And I got to the end. How many of you are doing what your guidance counselor recommended? 1,500 people. 7 people put up their hand. But they were looking at me funny. They were waiting for me to get out of the mess I just created for myself. But here's how I saved the story. I said, this is not about what you do for your role and your profession. This is about how fluid our world is. You make a plan. All of a sudden you realize that plan isn't going to work, so you change the plan. We came up with this expression during COVID we called pivot. Personally, I don't like that expression. That's just me. But there was a lot of expressions that came out of, you know, the COVID era. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to even think about it. But I do believe we adapt. Now, that may be messing with words. They may be the same. I don't know. All I know is adapting is what indeed we do. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let me tell you about my counselor, okay? Because I just love this memory. I grew up in a little town in the west called Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Anybody know where Yorkton, Saskatchewan is? Oh, we got 1, we got 2, we got 3. Excellent, that's great. Little town in the prairies, about 2.5 hours directly east and north of Regina. Population 10,000 people. I was born in 1960. So 1977, I sat in my guidance counselor's office. His name was Mr. Sherwin, and we talked about my future. Now, you will understand context in a minute. If I don't explain it, you'll get it anyway. I had a plan. So Mr. Sherwin was kind of a waste of my time. But there I sat, being respectful. He was my guidance counselor, I guess. He said, Mr. Law, I have to ask you the question, what are you planning to do after you graduate in the spring? And I said, I'm going to be a rock star. Now, that sounds a little funny on its own, but if I didn't play the drum, you'd probably wonder about my credibility. Now that you've seen that, you haven't even seen me play the whole set. I'm not going to do that, okay? But you should see that. So I wasn't dreaming a stupid dream. I was dreaming a real dream. I wanted to be a rock star. I mean, who doesn't? You know, we have these colloquial commercials on television now, right? With the rock stars. You've seen those. Oh, I was so mad when they brought that up. I should have trademarked it. Anyway, the reality is Mr. Sherwin looked at me with no disrespect and he says, I figured. I kind of knew your plan. But he says, my job is not to just rubber stamp your future. My job is to challenge you to think differently, to think about another idea. Do you have a plan B? And I'm like, I'm 17 years old. I don't even have any plans at all, except I know I want to do this. He goes, you got to have a plan B. You got to have a backup idea. What would you do if you didn't go out and be a rock star? I swear to God, everybody here, I said very quickly, because I got a quick brain, I said, how about dentistry? Can you imagine? Open wider. I don't think so. So Mr. Sherwin said, you trying to be funny, Alvin? I went, trying. You know what he said? I swear to God, he said, Mr. Law, if anybody understands this, life isn't funny. Whoa. You've obviously never been to Newfoundland. I love humor. I'm going to tell you some funny stories today that sometimes cross a line, not an inappropriate line, because kind of people go, was that really funny? If I say it, it's funny, trust me. But what I'm saying is, he's right though, isn't he? He's right. As we sit here today, we live in a world, in a climate that people have just lost their sense of humor, haven't they? Because it's real. What's going on in particular south of the border? Real. That's like a soap opera waiting to happen. What's the story today, Mr. Trump? I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to talk about politics. But it affects you, doesn't it? It affects what you're up to. Politics in Canada affects you. Politics in Newfoundland. Thank you for the government being here. Really, thank you for government being here. Because government is usually the first target people want to attack because government never gets it right. I disagree. I just think we got to talk a little bit about that all through this event today, but I will touch on it, that idea one more time a little later. Okay, back to the story. So Mr. Sherwin, as I were having this little conversation, he said, I've got an actual idea. Do you want to hear it? Sure. He says, you should be a broadcaster. Broadcasting. I'd never thought of that like once. So my reaction was, like on television? He goes, no, you're too ugly for TV. This was 1977. We could say that and not be offensive, right? And I was ugly. Hey, here's another recall story. What did you look like back in your high school days? You're good looking? Do you have that beautiful thing going on in your life? You're a guy, a gal, you're perfect, you're pretty, you're handsome, you're dating the hottest people in school? Or were you like me? I was ugly. And it wasn't even helping that I wasn't helping me get better looking. I had big hair. You remember 80s heavy metal hair? I actually had 80s heavy metal hair, like in the 70s, and it was big. So now I look back at my pictures and I go, God, the whole problem with that is dimensions. You know, a skinny body, no shoulder, big head. I looked like a Pez dispenser, seriously. So he was right. I was ugly. So then we went on. I said, so what do you think? He goes, radio. Radio. That was old school, right? Could I be like a disc jockey? Why not? Alvin, you've proven you can do anything. Why not? How do I do that? Go to school. Okay, I was listening to the panel, and one of the things we know is an obvious cliche, we need to learn. That's why you're here. That's why you joined, isn't it? Part of learning, we need to learn. And I agree. I need to learn how to be a broadcaster. So who knew? Back in 1978, I went to Mount Royal College in Calgary, now Mount Royal University, small college, took a 2-year diploma course in broadcasting, graduated in 1980, and 2 weeks later I was working in Regina Radio as an FM disc jockey playing classic vinyl rock. And I sounded like this. It was called FM 92, The Rock of Regina. You have a station in Newfoundland called Oz, The Rock of the Rock, right? Is that right? So that's what I did. And I played vinyl. But here was the thing. I was so young. I had yet to come into my brain the thought, what is my life going to stand for? Can I find a meaning? I wasn't thinking about that yet. I was having too much fun playing rock and roll, hanging out with rock bands like Trooper and April Wine and Prism and all those groups from my era. Remember them? Yeah, they're still around. They're playing the casinos now. Good for them. Anyway, the reality is, I loved that job. But then all of a sudden, my plans were disrupted. Not because I made a new plan, but because life threw one at me. Can you relate to that? How many times has life thrown you a curveball plan and you all of a sudden go, oh, didn't see that one coming? But this is a good story. My boss called me in for a little interview. Oh, what did I do wrong? It wasn't wrong. It was, I got an opportunity for you, son. That's what he said. He called me son. He's an older guy. He said, I've had a school call me and ask if we can send a disc jockey from our station to a career fair at a local junior high. I want you to go. I went, what do you mean you want me to go? I want you to go there and talk about broadcasting. I went, I've never done a speech. He goes, doesn't matter. You're a communicator. Figure it out. So that was it. That was the explanation. No discussion. Just I'm going. It was kind of fun, though. I got to take the Rock 92 van, you know, those old big panel vans we used to have with the mural on the side. Got to wear my Rock 92 jacket, hand out Rock 92 stickers to all these 13-year-olds. And I'm in this room with about 100 of them, and they're all looking at me funny. Now, I'm talking about looking at me funny, not like I've been used to since I was born, but looking at me funny that I thought was because I was a celebrity. You know, that's what I was, and it's easy to be a celebrity in Regina. Anyway, that's what I thought they were looking at me like. And I could, all right, I'm a speaker now. Speakers take questions. I don't do that today, by the way. Speakers take questions. So boys and girls, any of you have a question, just raise your hand. Like everything just stopped. Every kid in the room put up their hand. I swear to God, every kid in the room put up their hand. So I acknowledged the kid in the front row. Yes, young man, you have a question. He stood up and said, how do you go to the bathroom? That wasn't a broadcasting question. What would you answer if you were me? Think about it. What would you say? Oh, and by the way, if you weren't thinking about that before, you are now. Aren't you? Because right now, what you're doing, because this is human nature, all of a sudden your head and brain has shifted gears, and you're now thinking about how do I do the things I do? Well, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. But this isn't about how I did this. This is the power that human beings possess. And I know that's cliche, but that's what I do. I'm a speaker. We have cliches, right? I didn't know what to say to the kid. But you know what I did? I invented the drum story. I got up because I was in a music room. You can't make this stuff up, right? I was presenting in a music room, and I was panicking. I was 21 years old. I didn't know what to say. It's a kind of a personal question. But there was a drum set behind me about 20 feet, and something said to me, go play the drums. And then something else said to me, these are 13-year-olds. 13-year-olds, everyone in the audience, I want you to close your eyes and not watch me play for 20 seconds. And then I'll get you to open your eyes and you can watch me play. So I did it. And it was beautiful to watch the change in reaction from the time they had their eyes closed. The question became, if I sound like a drummer with your eyes closed, then I'm a drummer with your eyes open. And that's the first thing you should notice, not the fact that I have no arms. In other words, as you heard in the introduction, it's not what's missing. It's what we have that counts. Is that not a reality check for everybody in the room? Because we have a fault being human. Not all of you, just humanity that I've seen. We tend to see the wrong before we see the right. We tend to see the bad before we see the good. And that's not because you're bad people. It's just human. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about this because, as you know, and as David knows for sure, this is a story. And I think that there's a lot of elements to it that apply to what you're here for today, okay? So let's get the elephant in the room into a little smaller space. Can you imagine how many times I've heard this? What happened to you? You know my favorite answer? Ready? Nothing. Let's contemplate that for a sec. What do you mean nothing? Something happened to you? No, it didn't. Oh, technically, I was born without arms. And then this becomes fascinating. It just happened to me on a plane a couple of days ago. You ever heard the word thalidomide? Yeah, I got a bunch of nods, and a couple of people went like this, because what did he just say? Thalidomide. If there was a Y, like my pal Simon Sinek talks about, the Y would be, it was a morning sickness medication that was designed in a time frame in our history when we thought it was okay for pregnant women to take medication. Now, that was back then. We know now it's not okay. But we had to learn that, didn't we? Like the learn word. We had to learn it in a very negative fashion. So the problem with that thalidomide word is it created its own stigma. So if you thought about thalidomide, you thought about deformed babies, you thought about images of kids, no arms, no legs maybe, no foreparts, all that. A lot of the commoners, I call it, the most common element of thalidomide would have been shortened limbs. So feet at the knees, hands at the elbows. Again, no disrespect, please, no disrespect. We weren't pretty. We weren't getting on posters. unless it was for some kind of charity, to show a crippled kid, which I've always had a real struggle with, you know? But we'll talk about that if we get there. The reality is thalidomide itself was indeed a mistake. But if we apply the theory of good and the bad, then we start to understand because of thalidomide, we now have pharmaceutical regulations that make it impossible for drugs to get on the market without proper testing. It's why the COVID thing, right or wrong, you know, injections or not, you know, vaccines or not, I don't care what you think, this is just a factoid. The reality of COVID was we couldn't rush the drugs to market because it was against the law. They were breaking the law by putting these things out quickly. But yet, what did we do? I don't know if we did it right. I don't know. That's what I think about when I think of government. How the hell do you get it right? Because half of you think it's okay, half of you think it's not okay. How can government function in a divided democracy? And that's what it is, right? I was watching television in my room, my living room in Calgary. I was fascinated with your election that just happened. Because I started watching it, and it seemed like one government was going to win again. And then I changed channels. I watched something else for a while, came back. Oh, news, we have a new government. I'm going, how the hell did that happen, right? But isn't it, like, not to get into this, okay? But how do you function in any democracy when half of the people voted for the person that didn't win? It's hard, isn't it? Well, I won't get into that, but I can tell you this. I've been around a long time to see all of these things go through. But my point regarding the whole thalidomide thing, back to personal again, pardon my grammar, it kind of pissed me off, right? As a teenager, back to being a teenager, remember that? Do you remember getting angry about silly things that you think of now as silly, but they weren't silly then? Your first breakup, you thought you were going to die, remember? Your first boyfriend or girlfriend that left you, oh my God, I'm never going to live! Yeah, that was a long time ago, but you felt that, didn't you? We tended to see the doom and the gloom of adolescence. So yeah, I wasn't like this back then. I wish I was. I went through a couple of years, no bullying, that wasn't what it was. It was just, I just was so mad. You know, that's not fair. That's a good one, isn't it? You ever say that one? That's not fair. Right, I had a really good proof on this one. Why me? Another really good one, okay? Why me? Why did that happen to me? So what became very, very much a part of my life, looking backwards now, I realized was me creating my own self-destruction, okay? I'll explain that later too. But here's the reality. I had to get some perspective. This one's real personal. 1985, August 23rd, 10:53 in the morning. My son Vance was born. So I'm a dad. Don't try to figure out how that happened, just go with it, okay? But see, that was another problem. As a teenager, I never had a single girlfriend. I was heterosexual, still am, but I couldn't get a girl to date me. And I thought it was them, you know? They wouldn't want to hold this. And I now understand that would be creepy. But then I was a teenager. I thought, well, why not? So it was their fault they didn't like me, not the fact that I was just not likable, okay? So obviously I found someone to hold this and the other fun parts. I told you, sense of humor, right? It is about the fun parts, come on. Anyway, the reality is, I don't know if you're parents or not, it doesn't matter. Helps if you are. It's quite the day, isn't it? Little side story. I made this one up. 2 most powerful words in human language. 2 most powerful words in human language. There's no right answer. There's my answer. That doesn't make it right. But a lot of people, when they hear that, they go, thank you. I like that one. Love you. That's a good one. You know what the answer is? I'm pregnant. Isn't it? When you say those words, no matter, it's usually a woman, they affect your life path, don't they? They change your life. And then you hope that maybe, just maybe, the answer that comes next is, oh, that's wonderful news, honey. Again, sorry for the derogatory language. Do you know what I said when I heard that I'm pregnant from that lady then? Oh, shit. We weren't even dating. It was one of those, you know, inappropriate moment now coming, okay? It was one of those drank too much at the bar, went home with somebody, and she got pregnant. That's how quick it was. So obviously we both made a mistake, But what we were going to do now was honor the code of our faith. Both of us were from religious families, so we said, let's stay together. We didn't love each other. I'm not trying to get into a social melodrama here, but the reality is when that baby was born, everything went out of my head, except this bizarre thought. I went back to my junior high school, grade 7, first week, Dr. Brass Junior High, Yorkton, Saskatchewan. I am a very uncomfortable adolescent, and I'm in the front row because that's how I did school, with the books on the floor, because I couldn't use my desk, so I always sat in the front row with my books and my pens and stuff on the floor. So there I was, 20 feet away from a nurse from the hospital there to talk that day about babies. I don't know if you remember that. I remember sitting there going, I don't want to hear about this, I don't want to hear about this, I don't want to hear about this. But now I'm in 1985. I swear, all I could think about was that woman. I could even hear her voice. And this is what she said. Two things. Again, sense of humor time, okay? She said, first of all, I remember her voice, childbirth is the most beautiful shared human experience. Okay, I just don't remember it that way. It was pretty violent, and a lot of swearing and stuff getting thrown, and I didn't feel like I was part of it. You know, breathe, breathe, breathe. That's not participating. That's giving the guy something to do. Anyway, the reality is, then she said, when babies are born, they're beautiful. No, they're not. They're not. They're covered in goo, aren't they? So, again, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I'm watching my son being born, and then they're holding him by the heels, and he's still attached to his mom, and he's dripping on the floor. And for some strange reason, I'm watching the floor. I can't explain this, but and then I hear this other voice. It was another nurse's voice. I hear, Mr. Law, Mr. Law. Okay, sorry, I was in a bit of a trance. Sorry, what? This is a very special moment, sir. We reserve this moment for the dads to cut the umbilical cord. And I went, they don't really let me play with scissors. So that nurse cut the cord, they tied the little knot, they put him in a bath, got rid of the goo, put him in a blanket, brought him over, sat me in a chair so I could pick him up or hold him or do whatever I was going to do next. This was a first time for everything. This was a first time, right? And they put him here. He fit here. They fit there, don't they? They're so brand new. Oh, by the way, he doesn't fit here anymore. My son is 40 years old now. Are any of you feeling age creep? Yeah? Some of you here right now? Some of you are going, I don't want to get old. Tough. It's going to happen. Turned 65 this summer. I can't believe I turned 65. I used to think 65 was like almost dead. But here I am. How's he doing? Oh, he's fine. He's fine. What does he do? He's a power engineer. Didn't see that one coming. That was not in the plan. He had another plan. But then one thing led to another, and now he's a power engineer, making more money than he deserves. You have power engineers, don't you? You know what they do. I always tell people it's like Homer Simpson on The Simpsons. That's what my son does. He just doesn't look like him. Anyway, no, he's good. He's earning a lot of money. Sorry, all seriousness, he's really good at his job. He's an engineer. And that's its own thing, isn't it? A lot of engineers in the room, I betcha. Good for you. That's a hard job. It's even harder to get to be that and do what you do. Well done. But he does get this question. How does it feel having a dad without arms? I love his answer. It's not like I got to pick. That's a big one, isn't it? Think about that. Let's just talk about this for 2 seconds. We don't get to pick, do we? You grew up, born, wherever you're born, wherever you grow up, that's your life. Would you go, I mean, this is not what I'm saying. You can't go back and choose. But isn't it funny? You know, we just land someplace, and we are profoundly affected by that climate in that home that we land, isn't it? That's just another obvious. But why am I talking about this? August 23rd, 1985, while I'm holding my child who's brand new, was the first time I actually learned the word empathy. It's the first time I ever thought about, I wonder how my mom and dad must have felt the first time they held me. I was born without arms. I wonder how that day went. Right? Life can be just brutal. It can be so unfair. And we just can't figure out why. And then this one hit me. Oh my God. I knew this intellectually, but it never got into my brain space. My mom was 55 years old the first time she held me, and my dad was 53, and I was homeless. It's real. Were we homeless? No. Did they die? No, they were fine. I was the problem. And I mean that. In 1960, people like me were a problem. And how do we see it today? Different. Because we grew as a society. Is it perfect? No, it'll never be perfect. But you see what I'm saying, don't you? Whenever I hear people say, oh, I miss the good old days. Yeah, which ones were those? Because I just don't remember it that way. I remember being put in a category of being severely crippled with no future quality of life. So my birth family gave me up because they just weren't in a position to take care of me. It's a fact of life. So what happened? Why was my mom 55 and why was my dad 53? I bet you're following the breadcrumbs now. They were my foster parents. They took me in from the hospital because I had nowhere to go. Again, not trying to be mean about this, but who would want to take home a kid like me? Seriously. So here's a comparison I often use. We have rescue pets. Did you rescue pets? Any of you in the audience? You know what I'm talking about? Notice you ever seem to take home the ones that are good looking? The rescue pets always seem to have issues, psychological problems, damaged souls, and yet that's the one we pick. And then some of you don't. That's okay. It's okay. All I know is that's kind of the model for me. Mom and Dad came up to the hospital. Mom was a foster mom. She went, yeah, I'll take them. But let's just for a minute put yourself in the shoes of my mom in 1960. All right? What the heck did she do? And I mean, really, what did she know? This was 1960. I watched that thing on AI. I'm going, oh my God, did we not see that one coming in 1960, I bet? But it's fascinating, isn't it? Because there was no Google. Mom couldn't Google, right? What was she supposed to do? Siri, we got a problem here. Is there a YouTube video for this? No, of course not. There wasn't. And there was no computer generation of ideas. This was human genius from a woman who barely graduated from 7th grade. Do the math. Mom was born in 1905. Dad was born in 1907. Somehow they managed to find each other in rural Saskatchewan. Had a boy, John, in 1932. He just turned 93 in July. My God, he's still around. Sadly, my brother Terry, who died at 86 due to a stroke 4 years ago now, but they were born in the 30s. Just the other day, I put on my poppy and wrote a thing on my website and on my social media about Remembrance Day, how important that was. I grew up in the home of a veteran, not a grandparent, a dad who fought in World War II, came home with all these medals on his chest. But he didn't call that honor. He called that responsibility. That's what we do, don't we? Hopefully, but we don't. Not everybody would. I'm sorry, but I ask kids that I talk to in schools nowadays, would you volunteer and get into the military for a career? Would you do that? And like hardly any of them go, yeah. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying the honor code has changed in our society, hasn't it? But I grew up in that honor code. But my mom was not a military veteran. My mom was a veteran of her own wars, right? I don't know if you recognize me or not. I'm kind of famous in Saskatchewan. It's really easy, by the way. The Regina Leader-Post wrote an article about me in December of 1961. They came to Yorkton because they had this trail of the thalidomide story. But you see, we didn't know the facts about my birth family because you couldn't know them then. You weren't allowed to find your birth family. And by the way, if you're wondering, I did in 1993. Now that we're on the topic, I met my birth family. I found out my birth father died in 1983 due to exceeding alcoholism and liver disease. I found out my family would have been farmers. They would have been in rural Saskatchewan with no power, no running water. I found out I would have had a brother Alan, a sister Elaine. I would have grown up in very severe poverty. But more than anything, I would have grown up with a mom, ready, who would live with lifelong guilt for taking 2 little pills to make her feel better. When I met her, it was weird. I didn't want to meet her. It's my wife's idea. By the way, I'm just going to say this. I know it might sound contrived and planned, but I truly believe that women should run the world. I just do. Because you can clap if you like, but here's why. Here's why. Whenever I backward stepped into my life, almost every person that had an incredible impact on my life was female. I don't think that's just by chance. I don't know. All I know is my mom was amazing. But my mom was this person who didn't really want to make a big deal out of this, you know? So when the press called and said, can we tell your story? She's like, yeah, okay. So they came to Yorkton, sat in our living room, photographer took a picture. I have it still to this day in a scrapbook, which is amazing because my wife is a feng shui master and a decluttering expert. Try keeping stuff when your wife wants to get rid of stuff. It's just really not fun. Anyway, I got a scrapbook. First page of the scrapbook is the first entry. Full page, front page, Regina Leader post, black and white. There I am, no clothes on. Just a little tiny diaper and a black photographic bar across my eyes so nobody will recognize who I am. Right. So then the reporter, he's looking at me, and Mom goes, okay, I know he's fascinating, but are you going to ask a question or something? He goes, I can't keep my eyes off him. Swear, my mom said, here's what she said, I know, he's adorable, isn't he? I wasn't adorable. I was a mess. But that's not how my mom saw me. That's what she learned to see. It's not what she saw when she took me home from the hospital. She told me this. She said, I sat and stared at you the first day you came home with me, and I'm going, what did I do? What am I going to do? So what she went with was instinct. Okay, we're all here to talk about the future of manufacturing. Good for you. But the knowledge in this room is staggering, isn't it? The experience in this room to share with each other, to make manufacturing going into the future the best it possibly can be. And I know, again, we can use all this new way of thinking with computers, but at the end of the day, human creativity is still the most powerful entity, isn't it? So I'll tell you mine because it's an old story. I get it. It's sorry, you see something good in this? Absolutely. Oh, I got to hear this. Oh, he's starting to use his toes for fingers and his feet for hands. How'd you teach him that? He taught me. Sorry, he's a baby. I know, baby teaches lots. You just got to pay attention. I walked in his room one morning. He was dangling his favorite teddy bear between his first and second toe by its left ear. So what'd you do? Mom said, I got curious. I thought, wow, don't see that every day. So I took him out of the crib. I put him on the floor. I stuck a bunch of toys in front of him. I waited to see what he would do. Just as quick as his brothers did when they were babies, he grabbed the toy with his toes and he started to play. Is this the toy? No, it's a hairbrush. I started using this hairbrush in 1981. By the way, side story, real quick again. After I did that show for those kids at that junior high, 6 months later, I wasn't a DJ anymore. 6 months later, I was an ambassador for the United Nations conducting awareness seminars for the International Year of Disabled Persons across Saskatchewan and Alberta for a year. That's how I started speaking. That's how I started getting into the profession, going into schools and telling kids how to see things differently. And I was doing stuff that was so ahead of its time. I had a logo from the company I was working for called the Abilities Council. I got them to change the name from the Saskatchewan Council for Crippled Children and Adults to Abilities Council. Today they're called Sask Abilities. Look it up. But I had all these changes. I was getting logos that had the word disability with an X across the disc because I was saying, focus on abilities, not what people can't do. You know, again, ahead of its time. But what I also know is those kids were learning because they still wanted to know. And so do you. How did you brush your hair? Well, again, how lucky am I? I can still do it. How do you wash your face? How do you shave? How do you shower? How do you dry off? I'm a successful speaker. I have staff. No, I don't. I roll around on a towel on the ground like a dog. That's how I dry off. It's not pretty. How do I go to the bathroom? So here's a little test for you. And I know it sounds like weird, and I know it sounds maybe funny, and I'm not trying to be funny. I'm asking you a serious question. Sometime in the next day, obviously today you're busy. Your brains are somewhere else. Somewhere in the next day, when in the privacy of your own space, I want to challenge you to go to the bathroom and don't use your hands. Now, everyone right now is probably thinking, okay, you know what? That's impossible. No, it's not. I do it every day. Am I bragging? No, I'm just saying. Anything's possible. It's how you see it. It's how you see the challenge. Now, you start in a different format. The first format you start in is you can't do it, so what do? You ask for help. Are you guys good at asking for help? Because that's real leadership. Real leadership isn't bowling everything over and doing it yourself. Real leadership is delegating and teaching and having people learn the skills that we can all work together with the power of the unit. That's why diversity and equity and inclusion is just getting to be beat up by you-know-who south of the border. And I'm so sickened by it. Because we're a world of diversity, aren't we? Anyway, I digress. I had to figure this out. Now, I want you to picture this. When I went off to college in 1978 to go to broadcasting school, I couldn't even go to the bathroom myself. I had to get someone to help me. I could do the bathroom, But I had to get people, men, of course, to go into the washroom, undo my pants, pull down the zipper, I'd pull down my gear, I'd go in there, do my thing, come back out, and they'd do it. It's just so amazing that I did that. But then eventually I discovered if you put elastic waistbands on regular pants, then you can use this effect with yoga to pull your pants up, including my underwear, and use the top of a toilet seat or a knob on a drawer or a little suction cup hook I carry around with me everywhere I go to suction against the wall if there's no place else to do it, and that's how I pull my pants up. My shirts go over my head. That's why I said I'm so glad we don't wear ties anymore. I used to wear a tie. I used to have it pre-tied, and I'd put it on my neck and shove it up, and I'd push my shirt into my pants, tuck it in so I could make a good first impression with the corporate folks, right? Well, now we have Untuck It shirts. This is a brand, Untuck It. I still got to get a hold of the people that own this. I think Wayne Gretzky's involved. I should be a spokesperson, shouldn't I? Same with those shoes, those slip-on shoes. I should be a spokesperson for them too. Anyway, getting off the topic, the function of what I did was starting to use my feet. But the real function was what my mom did. She turned my feet into my hands, and my so-called handicap disappeared. I could tell you stories all day long, but I want to tell you my favorite. You see, what I found was family was one thing. Adapting to having no arms was another thing. But getting the community to see the true person inside of me, that was the most important thing. So I'm going to tell you my favorite story, and then I'm going to play you a video, and then we're done, okay? I want you to picture this, so please, if you will, in real time. Mom gets a phone call in 1971. Hello, Mrs. Law. My name is Blaine McClary. I'm the band director for the Yorkton School music programs. I'm new to town. I've instituted a new policy. All 11-year-olds in town, I've asked to take a music aptitude test. Oh, and your son got 96%. Wow, that's a good mark. It is, Mrs. Law. We want him in the band. Now, I want you to picture this in real time. What would you think? Nothing yet. Mom says, that's wonderful. Did you have an instrument in mind? You know, Mrs. Law, normally we don't do this, but I'm kind of inclined to offer you a special deal. Why don't you bring your son up to the high school sometime? He can pick any instrument he wants. That sounds wonderful, Mr. McClary. I just got one more question for you. Sure. Have you met him? No, I've got his phone number here. I'm kind of going through a list. Well, kind of an important time to tell you, sir, that Alvin sort of has no arms. And it's quiet, right? He goes, sorry, what? Yeah, he was born without arms. I've never heard of that. Yeah, and most people say that. So what now? And he goes, yeah, what now is right. I'm sorry, Mrs. Law, I don't know what to say. All I can say is there's no way that a kid with no arms can be in the band. And that was what we were used to. It's what we were used to hearing. You know, not a bad thing. Not blaming society. We just didn't expect society to think any different. Until Mr. McClary phoned back 6 weeks later. This is a great story, okay? So we go to the school, and we meet this Mr. McClary dude, and we meet two other teachers at the high school in Yorkton. We go to the back of the wings where they teach the trades, right, like construction. We go into this room where there's a funny-looking wooden chair. The wooden chair had the right arm missing, and on the left arm there was a metal rod bolted to the side of the big clamp on the top, and another one on the back. On the floor was a long black leather case. Mr. McClary sat me in the chair, opened up this case, took out and put together, inserted in these clamps, a trombone. A trombone. And like a game show host, he went, what do you think? Okay, I didn't know what to think. All I know was that was the weirdest looking moment of my life, all right? So what am I supposed to do with this? He says, well, can you move the slide with your foot? Yeah, I can do that. Wow, I can do that. Can you make this noise? Okay, can you do it in the mouthpiece and move the slide? Well, this noise came out, right? 11-year-olds love noise, so now I'm kind of getting into it. I played for a couple of seconds. They told me to stop. They locked the slide. I sat there in absolute confusion. See, a lot of people say, so that's when you went, oh, I know what my future's going to be. No. You know what I was thinking? How am I going to march? I didn't see the future. All I saw was now. Now, isn't that fascinating? We hear people that are spiritual talk about living in the now, living in the moment, all these things. I've become a very spiritual person, not all that religious like I was when I was a kid, because my wife didn't grow up with religion. So we've explored the world together, learning about what the world believes in faith, which has been fascinating to me. My wife believes in feng shui energy. The energy of human beings is part of that feng shui. You know, we think about rooms and waterfalls and rock features, but no, we don't often think about the person and their energy. A human being has energy. Can you feel mine? Right? It's real. I'm like this all the time. I really am. You know, and people kind of go, wow, that must get really tiring to hang out with you. It is. You should meet my wife. She's worse or better, whichever one you want to call it. But when you have positive energy, what do? You attract people into your sphere, don't you? Now, if you have negative energy, by the way, sorry, it's a choice, you repel people. Do you know anybody like this? You're around for 30 seconds, it was 25 seconds too long? It's hard to jettison these people, isn't it, though? But the reality is, the more that you position yourself, the more that you're attracted into organizations like this, the more you find your souls, your like-mindedness, your heart connections. But more than anything, you start to realize trying to figure out a problem with one person is one thing. Trying to figure out a problem with a whole group of people like this organization is a totally other thing. So when you collaborate together, when you do what the objectives are, when you learn from all the really smart people in the room, then you move forward in this industry that is so impossible to predict, right? But the other idea is you got to dream, don't you? When you're manufacturing, you got to dream. Is that possible? Is that even doable? And then we say to ourselves, maybe, just maybe. I want to play you a video that was filmed in 2016 in England. It shocked me when I got invited to be part of this. Part of the Paralympic movement. It was an invitation to be in a band, in a music video, that was going to be a commercial enterprise of Channel 4 London in England. And it ended up being a video they showed in the opening ceremonies of the 2016 Paralympics in Rio. In fact, to be quite honest with you, I never saw that one coming. But all of a sudden, my abilities and skills to use my feet took on a completely different dimension. Not one of, aren't I amazing, to one of, can't we all be amazing? Hey, bud, please play the video. Check this out.
Yes, I can, suddenly, yes, I can. Gee, I'm afraid to go on has turned into, yes, I can. Take a look, what do you see? 133 pounds of confidence in me. Got the feeling I can do anything, yes, I can. Something that sings in my blood is telling me, yes, I can. I was just born today, I can go all the way, yes, I can. 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 Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can! Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way, yes.
What do you think of that? Thank you. I'll be honest with you, why did I just say that? When I saw the pre-release video back in 2016, it was way ahead of the event itself. And they sent it me, and I'm watching it, and I'm getting all emotional, I'm crying, and then it gets to the end, and it says, we're the superhumans, and I'm going, wow, really? Are we really superhuman? And all of a sudden now, in 2025, I heard it again this morning, we have this expression called superpowers. I get it, that's a good word, because you know what I love about it? It sounds audacious, but it says to us we all can do better. Because we've all got something very powerful inside of us that can help fix the world, and I believe we can. I really believe we can. But here's the really funny part of that story, and it's really very inspiring. I hope you don't mind me sharing this again. When we got to England, we really didn't know each other. We had never met. We'd never practiced together. That band that you just heard played that soundtrack in a week. And we found out our music director, we didn't know this was going to happen. It was really funny, actually. He showed up at this rehearsal place. It was actually a music studio. And he showed up late. He was apologizing. And why was he late? Well, because Elton John wouldn't quit playing, he said. And we go, wouldn't quit playing what? He says, well, I was at George Martin's funeral. Do you remember who George Martin is, the manager of the Beatles? Okay. He says, I was at George Martin's funeral. It took forever. And then he pulled out this pamphlet from his jacket and he showed it. It was the whole thing, the rundown of George Martin's funeral. So this was real. And he was our music director. How did they pull that one off? And then he says to us, we're rehearsing in the studio today because we're all going to make this happen. And it's going to be hard work, but I trust you guys are all ready to do this. And by the way, they fired the last music director because they wanted to put up a false soundtrack where you guys were pretending to play because there's no way you can possibly do this. That's what he said. So they fired him and they hired me. And by the way, I don't believe you can't. I believe you can. Because listen to the words of that song alone. Sammy Davis said it, yes, I can. So we started rehearsing. And then at the end of that rehearsal, he goes, by the way, I got a surprise for you. What's that? He says, we're going to be recording the soundtrack this Saturday at Abbey Road Studios. I know, that's what I said. Wow, actually said a different word. But really, really? So we go into Abbey Road Studios. You haven't been there because you can't go in. Nobody can go in unless you're a musician recording a soundtrack or an album or something. So can you imagine? I'm a lifelong musician. I walk in the doors of Abbey Road. You walk down the hallways and all you see, kind of like at the Exile restaurant and the Jag with all the pictures and the photos of all the big rock stars. What a place that is, huh? Thanks for dinner again. And I kind of like, wow, this was amazing. Walking down the hallways and all these big stars. And then we go into the studio. It's gigantic. And it's the same one. Same paneling, same floor, same baffles, same everything. The piano that John Lennon wrote his music on in that studio was still sitting against the wall. Same one. I had to go over there and play it. By the way, I also play the piano. Anyway, the reality is, I get behind the set of drums, and I'm doing the sound check, getting the microphones all adjusted. And then I do a few riffs, and I'm playing around, and then they play the first, we had to do it in segments, right? So you're playing the drums first, and then the bass player, and then the guitar player. That's how they record nowadays. So I got this soundtrack in my head. I got a click track on the other head, which is like a metronome. And I'm in the middle of playing a little bit like you just saw, and then all of a sudden everything stops. And I hear in the headphones, excuse me, Mr. Law, sorry, you're freaking everybody up here out. I've had to stop the recording because nobody's paying attention now, because all they're doing is, how the hell does he do that? And I'm asking now, how do you do that? I said, I don't know. Where'd you learn? Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Never heard of it. Who taught you? Guy named Eric. Wow, good for him. By the way, I've been here 42 years. I've never seen anything like this. And I can tell you as a fact, sir, Ringo would be jealous, he says. Ringo Starr would be jealous of me? Can you guess the first thought I had? Mr. Sherwin's not dead, okay? But I thought to myself, hey, Mr. Sherwin, remember that little conversation we had a long time ago about how I was dreaming of being a rock star? It's happening, buddy. You see, anything can happen. And if you don't believe it, think again, not because of me. Just look around the room. We have a room full of believers that anything is possible. The difference between you and I is you can change the entire world with what you do. And my job is to hopefully inspire you to believe you can. Thanks for having me here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Thank you. Hey, buddy.
I do hugs.